Back, and we are continuing our really important weekly visit with Charles Sam Faddis, former undercover agent of the clandestine service of the Central Intelligence Agency, a man who has served his country in a number of capacities. He's an attorney by training. He was a former assistant attorney general out in Washington state. And he is these days running a terrific online resource and magazine.com. We're always delighted to be able to pick his brains, as I say. Let me ask you, Sam, to just help us grasp what is meant by the term color revolution. And is that what the Marxists are about in America at this moment?
Well, typically when we talk about color revolution, we're talking about a revolution that is built around some kind of symbology or cause that kind of galvanizes people and motivates them. So I think that is absolutely what you're looking at here. But I think you made reference earlier to the fact that in the United States we're not really used to talking about Marxism. We are so completely sure that we are all generally on the same page. We may differ on policy, but we agree that we live in a constitutional republic. And it is very difficult for the average American to absorb and really accept the fact that what we're facing here is a deliberate, organized revolution built around whatever symbology. But the point is, these folks do not accept these bedrock principles. Free speech is an absolute for most Americans. You may not like it. You walk away. You can call me names, but I can say whatever I want. No more, according to these people. We now have huge government structures that are weaponizing intelligence and law enforcement agencies to actually come after you if you counter the party's line.
Yeah.
The
And
principle
I want to talk to you about that in particular, in this connection with the new entity within the Department of Homeland Security, one of our
right.
most important law enforcement agencies. But before we go there, Sam, just one last question on the color revolution bit. If you look at this as a similar kind of uprising, if you will, to some that we've seen elsewhere, but not to bring about freedom as we have sometimes seen, but actually to bring down a free republic. This would cause, I think, the average American, at least, to regard what's going on here as a betrayal of the country, as treason. Um, and yet, there seems to be very little evidence that, at least the Democratic Party and its office holders are going to view it that way, let alone support efforts to treat it that way. Am I missing something there?
No, I think you've put in regard to the Supreme Court thing, you put your finger precisely on the point, right? The Supreme Court, again, if it actually rules as it is expected now to rule, will say democratically elected legislatures should decide this issue. Full stop. That's the sum total legally. So these folks that are now threatening violence and in fact already committing violence do not believe in that principle. That's the ultimate point. They do not believe in the principle of democratic rule. Just like they don't believe in free speech, they don't believe in that. They believe it should be imposed from the top. And they are going to opt completely out of the democratic system, just like they did previously, and use mob violence to intimidate their political opponents. Now, down this road, not very far, is in fact the same road the Romans walked over 2,000 years ago, when you wake up and discover that you don't vote on anything anymore. There is no republic. The mob puts a guy, or the army puts a guy in as the emperor.
Right.
And all of a sudden you realize, whoa, we lost everything we
country.
had. And that's the point.
Yeah. Sam, I just have to say that one of the things that strikes me is a lot of the commentary about this decision anticipated now to come out of the Supreme Court, assuming the justices are not intimidated into changing
Right.
direction or perhaps even harmed in some ways, is that the polling indicates the vast majority of people in this country support Roe v. Wade. That is to say, abortion rights. If that were so, you'd think that they would be confident that if everybody gets a chance to vote on what abortion law will be, it would come out their way. And yet, that isn't their view. And it suggests to me that maybe that's not where popular sentiment actually is.
Right.
But Sam, we're going to run out of time before we run out of things to talk with you about. And I did want to come back to something you've alluded to now several times. Um, One of the people who has been entrusted with making decisions about our First Amendment freedoms within this Department of Homeland Security, one of our most important law enforcement agencies, as I said, is uh, a very peculiar choice, I would say. A woman by the name of Nina Jankowicz, completely unaccountable, um, not even, a Senate confirmed individual. What do we know about this gal and her predilections and the advisability of entrusting, particularly to such an individual? I mean, to anybody really, but to such an individual as this, especially, the responsibility to determine what can be said and by whom.
Well, we know that she has a penchant for making very cringeworthy videos that she puts online of her doing musical performances, some of which are a little off color, more than
You
a
know,
little off
quite
color. She
indeed.
seems to be mad. She is a Democratic Party functionary. She is a very radical leftist. And make a list of every conspiracy theory trotted out against the MAGA movement and Donald Trump and everybody else. And she has been 100% on board with that. And she has, of course, towed the party line on everything else. Hunter Biden's laptop is not real, it's Russian disinformation. You can predict all of this. And she is very, very clear, startlingly so, on camera all the time about the fact that she absolutely believes the government should be very proactively, very aggressively censoring what you can say and what you can do.
Yeah.
She's a revolutionary, and in any revolution, the really dangerous people are these self-appointed intellectuals who create the basis on which you can then be dragged off to the gulag, executed, and silenced. These are, you can always find the guys to do that. It's the folks who create that ideology and
Mhm.
justify it that are dangerous. So when we're all
Yeah.
done laughing at her Mary Poppins routine, she ought to terrify everybody.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've done a commentary today in which I describe her as the poster child, really, now of the Marxist revolution in our
Yes,
country. And it's chilling, as you say. She's got, some peculiarities, but I think Tucker Carlson, had his finger really on the problem in a conversation he had last night on his television program on Fox News, in which he described her as a Stalinist. And that's
absolutely.
not the kind of person that you want anywhere near our government, I would argue, period, let alone in a position that has this potential to simply shred the First Amendment of the United States. And this is why I really commend to our audience this important piece that you've done about what the left is really gunning for. It's not just Roe versus Wade's overturning that they're up in arms about, and potentially literally so. It is, in fact, that they are seeking to fundamentally transform the United States of America, a term that Barack Obama, I think, first introduced to us all on the eve of his initial election. And it remains the abiding objective and a revolutionary one at the hands of the Marxists in our midst. We're going to talk more about all of this with Trevor Loudon on the other side of this short break. Sam Faddis, thanks for joining us. Come back to it again next week.